In this video, I'm going to show you some formula basics. These are basics for spreadsheets in general. There may be some differences in how your spreadsheet implements them. Uh, I'm using Google Sheets to do the demonstration, and Google Sheets uses a lot of things that are very similar to Excel, Microsoft Excel. But there are differences in things like OpenOffice and in Apple's Pages programs, or numbers rather. So you will find their implementation somewhat different, but the concepts, I believe, are the same for all of them. So that's what I'm going to be focusing on. This is going to be about formulas, and formulas are really helpful for adding up large amounts of things. I use formulas pretty much all the time for everything, and these are the simplest of the formulas. Excel supports a huge array of different formulas that you can include for all kinds of things: database functions, text functions, date functions, but the statistical functions like sum, average, mean, max, min, these are things that Excel and Google Sheets both support. So that's what I'm going to focus on here. So here we have just a simple spreadsheet. These are the animals that these kids have had over their lifetimes. Maybe they're adults now, I don't know, but how many dogs did you have when you were a kid? So that's just data for us to use in these formulas. So we're going to focus on the formulas. So the first idea is the idea of a sum. These formulas here are laid out for us, but they're basically going to fit this general model that we can say we want this formula. You always put the equal sign for a formula. That we have the sum of a range and maybe another range and another range. Normally we just have one range when we're working with a formula. So that might just look like this. And what does a range look like? Well, that's going to be some range of values, and I can use the tool here to select this and select the range manually. And Google Sheets does a nice job of outlining everything as I'm moving through it. So you can see that range here is B4 to E7. That's this cell here, B4, to E7. This range right here. Okay, so that's all of our values. But then we can also do pieces of it. So if you look down here, that's actually what this is, the sum of this range here. And if I click in it in Sheets, you can see that the range automatically selected. So this is only the first way. As I said, it can be range and then a second range. So that's what I did with total mammals. Here we have a first range, which is B4 to C7, and that's the cats and dogs. And then a separate range that's not connected to those first two columns, E4 to E7. And if I click on this, you can see that Sheets has given it two different colors, showing the two different ranges. And if I click between them, you can see the colors highlighting the ranges. So that's nice. The most important thing here is to remember that these are separated by commas. If you tried to do something like plus, you might get some odd value. And you can do it, we could have done the same thing using three ranges. If I click in here, you can see I have the range of cats, the range of dogs, the range of hamsters. And then finally here, this is a simple thing. I did this for sort of completeness purposes. I see when I'm helping other people with Excel or with Sheets, I see this style used a lot where people basically just select each individual piece. It's a little harder to do in Sheets than it is in Excel. Excel kind of expects you to do this, and so it's already set up. You can just put a plus in there or equals, and you can click, 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 which is convenient for certain things, but it's not really good for creating a spreadsheet that you would ever use again. And then the same idea here is illustrated with sums, using a sum of ranges, but each range is just one single cell, like that. Formulas are most useful when you're planning on using your sheet again for some future purpose. They are obviously helpful when you're just adding things up, but having formulas with ranges like this suggests that you can go and change values later. So this may mean that you set up your spreadsheet at the beginning of a project with the idea that you're going to fill in the final data later. And this is a basic thing, but I'll just demonstrate that really quickly. Let's say we forgot to put in Jacob's fish. He had one fish, which was very precious to him, and we left it out, and he's very upset with us. So we add that in, that one fish, and you can see that our total changes. The total number of animals changes. And since the mammals are all here, Mark was in the same boat, and he had 2 cats that were very precious to him. And so we forgot to put those in. So that adds to the total animals and to the total mammals, and also to the total mammals owned by boys. All those formulas have changed automatically because of the way we set this up. And this is the power of formulas. Now, very common problem with people modifying cells is that they will basically change the range. So they change what it means, or they delete a value. And I'll just demonstrate this really quickly. If I said in my total mammals section here, if I accidentally deleted this Mark's hamsters here, for some reason I just removed it, you might see that all the values in this spreadsheet would shift up. This is definitely true of Excel. I'm not as sure if it's true of Sheets, but everything would move up, and that would really mess up our ranges. And then of course, we just like, oh, we didn't mean to do that, or we use this cell that's highlighted right now. This one's gone, this one is the one. So what we'd end up with is this, if we did that. So we'd have truncated our range, one of our ranges, by a row. And this happens in Excel without people even realizing that it happens. And I've audited many spreadsheets over my life that where the numbers are not making any sense, they don't add up, and people don't know about this idea at all, this concept at all, and so they say, well, I put in all the formulas, but I don't know why it's not working. So Excel has some auditing features that you can use for this, and Sheets has this nice little thing that you can do. I mean, Excel does this too, but it's like you can see really visually, as long as you don't have cells depending on other cells, you're in good shape. In this first one, the total number of animals didn't change because the formula is referring to the whole range. In this one, oops, we left this one out. So it's a good idea to go in at the very end when you're checking your values to make sure they're all correct, especially if you've made a bunch of changes to adding rows or deleting rows or things like that, that you go back in and make sure they're okay, and that your formulas make sense. So we'll put that back to it, and I'll demonstrate one way in which this can happen. If I come in here and I insert a row above, and I say Jim, and he had 1 cat, 4 dogs, dog lover, hated fish, and didn't care for hamsters either. Okay? So, and if you notice that, this formula automatically changed. And that's because it's using this range. And if we insert rows in the middle of the range, then they will be automatically added into the ranges of some of our formulas. This should be true here too. It expanded these ranges automatically. However, you may not have the same issue if you had something, if I insert a row below. Sarah, and she had one cat, one cat, one dog, one fish, and one hamster. Our value didn't change, and that's because we added Sarah below these other ones. So this is very common in both Excel and Sheets, and I think Numbers also, where if you're adding something below a range, if you're adding it in between the range, you're good. If you're adding it below or above, your results may vary. So be really cognizant of this as you're putting together your sheets. This is a big gotcha. Same thing is true for columns if you're adding columns in. And then deleting, like I said, deleting in Excel. Say if I deleted these values, if I clear the values, which you can do by using the delete forward, then you're not going to affect your formula. So I just cleared those two values, and they didn't affect our total here, because Mark had 0, both of those. So that didn't affect our total, and I cleared them, and I can now add them back in. Okay, so really he had 15 fish, and he had 29 hamsters, and he killed them all. So those are fine. But in Excel, it's very easy to delete the cells, and if you do delete the cells, they're deleted from the ranges. Google's a little bit safer in that regard, but still you have to watch out. So I hope you found that helpful. This is the basics. Leave any comments that you have below, any questions that you have, and I can prepare additional videos to help clarify any